Barbara Madden is my oldest sister. She was dominant in 2 sports here at St. Joe's during her 4 years. She was captain, I believe, all 4 years for her softball team. She was also an extremely talented basketball player, but she loved softball. Softball was her number one. She was older than me, but she was somebody who I looked up to, somebody who I wanted to be. The first thing I remember connecting her in sports was when I was playing Little League Baseball. My dad was the coach, and she was always a scorekeeper. And then she got involved with softball, so we would play catch in the backyard. I knew that she was going to be pretty good because my hand would always be sore when we'd be done throwing the ball around. When my sister Barbara was I believe it was a sophomore, she was asked to try out, and she made the Raybestos Robins team, which was the farm team for the Raybestos Brakettes. The Raybestos Brakettes at that point in time, they were world champions. They used to have a world championship right here in Stratford. For her to have the opportunity to play, number one, at the same facility, and number two, have an opportunity to interact with the Brakettes says an awful lot about her and her ability. But Joni Joyce, Bertha Reagan, they were kind of like the major softball players in the world back then. And they were on the big team and she was on the small team. And, they would interact a little bit, and it was fun going down to see her games. And she did that, I believe it was for 2 or 3 years while she was here at St. Joe's, and just extended her softball season. To go to one of those games, go to the tournaments, it would be a packed house. Softball was really catching on in the area, and my sister was pretty good in order to make that Raybestos Robin team, and we were so fortunate to go see her play a little bit during the summertime. Yeah, when my sister called me about presenting her to the Hall of Fame, I was deeply touched. Me being an alumni here, coached here, played here, to have that connection to the school and to be able to present her into the Hall of Fame really means an awful lot to me. I'm so proud of my sister for all the things she has done with her life, and getting into this Hall of Fame, I think, is just a tremendous honor for her and for our family name.
My name is Jerry Sargent. I'm the father of Jeff, our 3rd son of 4, all of whom have gone to St. Joseph's. They got involved in swimming at an early age thanks to my wife. She said that with 4 sons, they were going to be highly active, keep them occupied, keep them swimming, keep them tired. We moved from Stratford to Trumbull on the other side of Dowling Field, and the boys were able to walk to school. Jeff, being our 3rd son, was different, but in a good way. He was our longest, 23 inches, and by the time he hit junior year at St. Joseph's, he gained another 53 inches, which by my calculation makes him 6 feet 4 inches. Makes him a very good backstroker. And at age 7, he joined the Stratford YMCA, which was an outstanding team in the state at that time. And he soon became an excellent backstroker, and he progressed up through the age group, 8 and under, 11, 12, 14 and under, and so on. And claimed many medals, trophies, ribbons, and chose St. Joseph's. Frankly, I was not surprised that he was inducted. He had a stellar career for St. Joseph's. For 3 years, he was the state champion in the Class S backstroke. 2 years, he was the state champion for 200 IM. His last 2 years at St. Joseph's, he did not lose a race in dual meets or in the states, and that's an extraordinary record. One achievement that Jeff attained was senior year. He was the first swimmer in the state to break 54 seconds in a 100-yard backstroke. The second major achievement for Jeff is that he's the first St. Joseph swimmer to attain All-American status. On a personal basis, Jeff married Margie Hicks, classically trained musician who's the musical director at Laurelton Hall. And they have two daughters, Elizabeth, who is a junior at Seton Hall and is a champion swimmer, as well as her younger daughter, Caroline, who is a freshman at UMBC, and she is a finalist in the American East swimming. So Jeff's 2 daughters are carrying on the same legacy that Jeff has in swimming. Jeff continues to his swimming prowess by being a member of the U.S. Masters at Westport Water Rats, and currently a U.S. Masters swimmer and coach who holds more than 30 state masters records and is a member of a world record-breaking relay. He has won over 50 individual or relay national championships and accumulated over 75 national top 10 rankings and is a 6-time USMS All-American. I'm happy that St. Joseph's recognizes the commitment of a swimmer. I'm happy that Jeff was inducted into the Hall of Fame. I think he deserved it, and I can only say that Jeff, your mom and I are very proud of you.
We were climbing the steps to the graveyard with regrets and our baggage in tow. From the cliffs of the Alderaan Mountains, you can see the sweet memories below. There was nothing here left but a portrait on a mission here only to serve. An empty room with a glass and a bottle.
In 1991, we were the Class M state champions also. We were 22-0. And going into the final game, we were number 2 in the state and the number 1 team lost. So we thought that we might move up to number 1, but in fact, we stayed number 2 and the team that had been number 3 and beat number 1 moved to number 1. So I think that was not a disappointment, but sort of a motivating factor for the following year. And we never talked about being number 1. That was not our goal was to win a state championship, and whatever came along with that was fine. Going into the 92 season, we had only lost 2 seniors from the previous undefeated team. We had a lot of returning players, so the expectations were very high. The girls worked very hard. They prepared during the summer. They had a great attitude throughout the whole year. 2 of the girls in that team, Chrissy and Kristen McCarthy, were both selected All-State that year, which is very unusual to have 2 girls from the same team, because only 6 girls throughout the whole state that were selected to the All-State team. But having 2 All-State players is not enough to win a state championship. You have to have contributions from a bunch of other girls, and we did. We were 22-0 again, and I think in those 22 matches, we only lost 4 or 5 sets. That was really a dominant team, and certainly deserving of number 1. The team played at a consistently high level throughout the year. There were very few times when we fell off from that level of execution. It was just a phenomenal year to watch. The girls had a great sense of accomplishment, having completed 2 consecutive undefeated 22-0 seasons and 2 Class M championships. So I think the joy was unmitigated, and they were just deserving of every honor they got that year. Kristen and Chrissy were selected as the co-players of the year by the Connecticut Post newspaper, but again, without the contributions of the other 6 or 7 girls, we never would have accomplished that. I think that was one of the first teams that instigated pasta nights. So the nights before big games, we'd go to one of the girls' houses for a pasta. I think that helped bring the team together, and really it's just something that continued until I retired. And I need to thank Pat Pardee, who was my assistant during those years, because he took these girls and he's the one who gave them their first instruction. So Pat really had a great bearing on all this success, and I thank him greatly. Congratulations to the 1992 girls volleyball team for being inducted into the St. Joe's Hall of Fame. It's an incredible honor and one that is well deserved.
You, my bright girl, do you remember when we used to sing sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la,
Chrissy came out for the volleyball team as a freshman. I didn't know her before that. Chrissy was a 3-sport star. When she came to St. Joe's, she knew no volleyball. She'd played basketball and softball before, but volleyball quickly became her favorite sport, even though she continued to play the others. Volleyball is a sport that she took the greatest joy in, and seeing that happen with any player is really one of the ultimate accolades for a coach. And volleyball, unlike most sports, when girls came to St. Joe's, they didn't know the game. So I'd have to go through physical testing on agility, on speed, jumping, overhand throwing, and she was off the charts on all those tests. And so she was one of those girls that we chose immediately to be on the team. And she picked up the skills quickly, in short order. In 1 year, by the time she was a sophomore, she was a starter, which was very unusual. Most girls would take 2 years, maybe 3 years to actually break into the starting lineup, but she was a starter as a sophomore and played full time. In her junior and senior year, she was not only a starter, of course, but she was an all-state player and led us to 2 consecutive undefeated state championships. Her skill set was incredible. She could do everything. She was our best passer, and her hitting was phenomenal. She was almost never blocked, and she had great jumping ability. So even though she's only maybe 5'6", 5'7", she could hit over the block. She's a great server. She had the perfect floater serve, which is an ideal serve to have. It's like a knuckleball in baseball, where it just sort of floats around the court, and it's very hard to pass. When I think about how she played, every skill she had was almost picture book perfect. She had a great smile and personality. She was a natural leader. She never took anything for granted. She worked very hard, never expected anything, and just did her best at all times. I thought of her as like a smiling assassin, because she had this great smile, and you'd think she was just this nice girl, and then she'd get out in the volleyball court and just tear the opponent's hearts out. When I learned that she was being inducted into the St. Joe's Hall of Fame, I was obviously very pleased, and I thought it was a well-deserved honor, as she had previously been inducted into the Connecticut Women's Volleyball Hall of Fame. Chrissy, congratulations again on being inducted into your second Hall of Fame. You're highly deserving of both honors, and I'm very happy for you.
I met Marvin Sadler in 6th grade at the Sheen Center. We played together on a grammar school basketball team.
Marvin comes to St. Joe's. His parents were interested in what I had to say.
Marvin and I, as seniors, were co-captains together. When you came out onto the court, all eyes were on Marvin because he was so big, he was quick, he was powerful, he did a lot of things. He could rebound, he could shoot, he could dribble. The fans on the opposing teams loved when we came to their gyms because Marvin was big. He was 6'8". He talked a lot of trash to the other team, also to the opposing fans, and he relished in the feedback he got. Marvin was always a fierce competitor. He was a great teammate because many times the opposing team was scared of Marvin. He was a big guy and he was a tough guy, and that made our lives a little bit easier.
He'd go chest to chest with somebody if, he sensed something was coming on. We played in a very difficult all-Catholic school league. He was right there in front defending any of his players or coach.
Marvin had great stats. He was top 3 in scoring, top 2 in rebounding, probably the all-time leader in block shots.
I think I sold him on it. He could contribute in more ways than just scoring points. As a coach, that's what you want. You want everybody pitching in. He did become a better defensive player, blocked shots, rebounded the ball, started the break with Tomy. It made me a better coach because I learned from him.
The one statistic that Marvin struggled with were assists. I think he averaged 2 assists per season. So when you threw Marvin the ball, you did not expect it back. Once in a while, Marvin would surprise you, and he would be posting up, yelling for the ball like he liked to do, and you would throw the ball into him, not expecting a return pass, because it rarely happened, and you'd get a ball right between the eyes. He'd look at you and he'd say, "How come you didn't catch it?" That would have been an assist. Marvin was a fierce competitor, but he was a great person. He came from a great family.
His parents were faithful fans. They came to every game no matter where.
We would be playing in St. Bernard up in Uncasville, Connecticut, and Marvin's parents were the first to show up. His sister was the loudest cheerleader we had, and that family that Marvin was brought up in is one of the reasons he's such a good guy today.
By the way, I was told that Marvin is one hell of a bowler. If I didn't have the double knee transplant, I don't care how good Marvin was, I'd take him on any time. I used to bowl a little bit. You know, he just turned out to be a great guy. You never knew it at the age of 14, but you look at him now, he's a man's man, and I'm very proud of him.
The first time I met Robert Ventresca was in Monroe Elementary back in 1972, our kindergarten class. There were 2 faces that stood out. One was Bobby, and the other one was our other best friend, Wayne Mavris. Still to this day, 48 years later, you could pretty much find the 3 of us around each other almost every week. It's been an amazing journey with Bobby. Growing up with Bobby in Monroe, you'd go over to the Ventresca house, and it was very funny. They had this big black V on the front of their house. If you loved the kid, then you knew it was the V. For a lot of different reasons, you know, the nickname V, you know, just stuck with him. Before you know it, we were in the heat of competition our freshman year, playing football together, and Bobby lived up to what I knew he was capable of living up to when we were younger playing sports. And there was no question of doubt right away once he stepped on the field our freshman year that he was going to be a go-to guy for us and was going to be as reliable for us here at St. Joe's as he was when we were kids growing up. You know, I think the rest of the world was very fortunate that he was only, you know, 5'8", 150 pounds, because if he was ever 6'4", 305 pounds, he would have hurt a lot of people because he was a very ferocious kid for his size. You know, he played defensive back and started in the varsity program his sophomore year because he was a great ball player and he was smart and he was aggressive. Now, mind you, we won the state championships our freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year. We lost, I believe, the 3rd game of the season our sophomore year, and then never lost again until way after we graduated. So the streak that we were on was really something special. And for Bobby to break into the starting role in his sophomore year says a lot about the capacity and the different roles he could play in a football team. And then he was always a backup quarterback. You know, obviously going into our junior year, once the position opened, there was no competition as to whose position it was going to be. I mean, it just made perfect sense. When you stepped into a huddle with him, there was never a question that he was going to get his job done. When you look at what did it take for us to win 4 state championships in a row, there's a special group of kids that had to do that. What did it take to win the last 2 while Bobby was a starting quarterback? It took a tremendous team effort, but it takes one quarterback. That's not a position that you can dance around. You know, growing up, he was the single best athlete that I ever played with. I mean, in baseball, Bobby was a true competitor. He could hit the ball, he could put it in play, he could hit it far if you needed him to. He had a great arm. You could put him on the mound. He was a tenacious kid. I think he is exactly what the Hall of Fame is all about. It's somebody that can lead you on the field and lead you off the field, and then be the kind of friend that you could rely on after hours, and the kind of person that you can count on, your family can count on. And I think that when someone like Bobby gets a chance to be inducted into the St. Joe's Hall of Fame, it really is about what he accomplished as an athlete on the field, but it's also a good way to honor his parents and his family and the team. You know, he's that kid. He deserves every bit of it.
It's a real pleasure for me to introduce my son, Mark Tomy, as an inductee into the St. Joe's Hall of Fame. At St. Joe's, Mark was a two-sport student athlete who constantly pushed himself to overachieve. He was a tough, competitive, but very humble kid who demanded a lot of himself. Mark was never physically large, but he always seemed to play at levels far above his size. I think back to Mark's time at St. Joe's, and I remember a person who entered his freshman year at 5'3" and 115 pounds, only to leave the school 4 years later as the male athlete of the year. In football, Mark was fortunate to play for Coach Christy Hayes. He lettered for 3 years and played 3 different positions: quarterback, punter, and place kicker.
When Mark first came to St. Joe's, I was quite concerned that he might not measure up to his brother, Mickey, who was just a phenomenal athlete here at St. Joe's. Mark's father confided in me not to worry, that Mark, he was going to be a great player in his own right, and boy, was he right. He was a very confident young man, very cool under pressure. He did some great things for us. He set some records, most yards for passing, most touchdowns, led us to 2 state championships, and he was just a very unassuming young man who had a job to do and did it. Didn't really care about records, really cared about winning.
Mark gained a reputation as a high-quality quarterback with an extremely strong and accurate arm. He led St. Joe's to back-to-back Class M state championships in 1988 and again in 1989. 88 was a great year, but 89 was almost magical. Mark had a truly sensational season, and the entire football team came together as one to become state champs.
The thing that stands out in my mind is when Mark was a senior, we had a state championship and we played Maloney High School, and we played them and it was horrible conditions. It was icy, rainy, snowy day. We couldn't pass the ball very much. We were losing in the last period and we got the ball back. It's something we call the drive. We went 92 yards in 18 plays in 8.5 minutes with Mark at quarterback under very trying conditions, and he was flawless. He did not make a mistake, led us right down the field, and we ended up winning the game with about a minute left in the game. He also did some other good things too. Another game, we played Xavier High School, and Mark completed passes to 7 different receivers, which was outstanding. And on Thanksgiving, he even completed a pass left-handed.
In football, Mark earned all-state quarterback honors from the New Haven Register, the Hartford Courant, and the Connecticut High School Coaches Association. He was selected as the ACC Conference Player of the Year, the Connecticut Post Offensive Player of the Year, and was a member of the New York Daily News All-Star Team. In baseball, Mark lettered for 3 years. He was known as a terrific pitcher and a rock-solid catcher. As a dad, I always felt a huge sense of pride anytime I saw my 2 boys together on the baseball diamond, and that was especially true in Mark's sophomore year when he pitched 5 games with his brother Mick behind the plate as his catcher, and also that year in the 7 games that Mickey pitched and Mark was behind the plate as his catcher. It was certainly a very special time for his mom and me.
Mark was a good leader. He led by example. He wasn't a big rah-rah guy. He worked hard, very dedicated to his skills, and he's a very good captain for us.
In baseball, Mark earned all-state honors, was a member of the Connecticut High School Coaches Association All-Star Team, and also the All-Area All-Star Team. Mark had some opportunities to play both football and baseball in college, but ultimately accepted a Division I baseball-only scholarship from Providence College. While there, he lettered all 4 years, was a member of the 1992 Big East Championship team, and in his senior year was elected as a team captain. Mark went on to get his master's from UConn and is currently a pharmaceutical rep with AbbVie. Recently, he took up long-distance running and successfully completed the New York Marathon and the Disney Marathon in Florida. My wife Sue and I are extremely proud of Mark and congratulate him and all the other inductees into this year's Hall of Fame class.
Well, I first met Ken Mayo in the fall of 1971. I was a freshman trying to play football for the first time, and I believe it was Ken's first year as a member of the St. Joe's High School football staff. It was a relationship that went on for well over 40 years.
Ken, after coaching strictly the freshmen for a couple of years, was recruited by us to come up on the varsity level, and he, within a couple of years, became the defensive coordinator and did just a superb job in that capacity. Our defense was extremely well drilled, well prepared, and it really made the difference in turning us from a kind of a mediocre program to a program that had to be reckoned with.
Ken was the defensive coordinator under Christy Hayes for 3 consecutive state champions, 1988, 89, and 1990.
Kenny was an assistant coach for me and did a fantastic job.
In the late 80s, Ken and I both taught up in what we call the convent, or the house as the kids call it now. Ken was a jack of all trades. He taught religion, he coached baseball for a while, coached football for over 20 years. He was a dean of students, he was an administrator, he became a principal. He kept coming back. He retired 2 different times and came back because this was his place to be. You know, St. Joe's was certainly better for it. Ken was always working on football. During football season, if he didn't have a class of kids sitting in front of him, he was looking at film. He was preparing the defensive practice plan for that day. He was working on the scouting report. He learned a lot of football from Coach McCarthy and Coach Hayes and Coach Zito, but he really was a student of the game. He was tremendously dedicated. That's what made him such a great defensive coordinator.
He always did his homework, before the game, to say the least. He would know the other team's formations and their plays and their tendencies, and we were able to pass those on to our guys, and it was a tremendous advantage that we had.
I think the kids really loved playing for Coach Mayo. They really bought into his philosophy on defense. They fed off his energy. He was high energy all the time at practice as well as games. He was fun to play for, according to the kids. Ken really enjoyed coaching his 2 sons. Both sons, Sean and Kevin, both played football and were good players for us in the late 80s, early 90s. And I know that was a special joy for Ken to be able to coach his 2 sons.
Aside from the field, we became very good friends. Our families became close. He was just a great guy. I'm glad to have called him a friend and a co-coach. And we're certainly proud of what he did on the football field for us and how he transformed our defense. More importantly to me, that he was just a great man, and we certainly miss him.
Well, it's certainly sad that Ken couldn't be with us tonight to enjoy this special honor. But this would have been a very difficult night for Ken. He wasn't comfortable with the spotlight. He always would try to deflect the praise and the credit to somebody else, the players, the other coaches. That's what made him such a humble guy and such a great guy. And we all miss him tremendously.
And a rock feels no pain, and an island never cries.
I met Kevin in 1984-85 through coaching. right then we hit it right off. We became close friends, and I think I admired the way that he went about his business. He was professional about everything he did. I learned an awful lot from Kevin, and we did a lot of scouting together, and we just became good friends. I think when I first got there, Kevin took me under his wing. I used to ask him a lot of questions about things, whether it was schemes on the field, practice plans, how to, different ways to practice. He always had something to offer. He always took the time to talk to a young coach who was just learning the business, and made sure that I was comfortable and made sure that I knew how to do it the St. Joe's way. And he took the time to get to know you as a person, not only just as a co-worker or a colleague. Kevin is one of the most unique coaches I think you'll ever meet. He has a way with words. He's got a distinct vocabulary. He's articulate. He has an analogy for almost every situation, for everything that comes up. He's very funny and he's very motivational. He can motivate not only the players, but he can motivate a coach. You kind of look forward to his pregame talks and his practice talks. When I took over as head coach, we kind of had a promise to each other. If one of us ever became a head coach, the other would follow and go help him out and be the assistant. He kept that promise. He was loyal. I remember we finally won our first championship together in 2009, and there was probably 10 seconds to go or whatever, and the clock was running down, and Kevin turns around and we're hugging everybody, and he turns around and pulls a camera out from his pocket and starts taking pictures of everything, and I was like, where did you get that camera? But he thinks of everything, and he said, I had it in my pocket the whole time. I knew we were going to win this game. We shared a lot of things like that over the years. Our players love Coach Morey. They always responded to him. They couldn't wait to hear his pregame speeches. They shared it with kids from other teams, and I remember coaching an all-star game, they would say, wait till you see Coach Morey's pregame speech. The kids adored him. He would refer to kids by their number and still does to this day. He'd say, hey, number 7, hey, double 4s, good to see you, that kind of thing. He just had a great rapport with everybody. I can remember there was one particular year, one of the kids on the team asked him, Coach Morey, you have 3 daughters, do you ever regret not having a son? And he said, I have 3 beautiful daughters, I have a beautiful wife, and I have 45 sons every fall that I coach, so no, I don't regret it. And I thought, wow, he's so quick with everything, his answers, but everything comes from his heart. Kevin, for everything that you have done in the past for St. Joe's, for everything that you continue to do for St. Joe's, for everything that you've done and all the lives that you've touched through coaching, especially with me and our football community, I just want to say congratulations to the most deserving honor of being a member of the St. Joe's Hall of Fame. Couldn't be any happier for you, and I just want to tell you I love you and congratulations again.